Sabbath School Quarterly 2023, Second Quarter, Lesson 10, Empire Struggles for Supremacy. For Sabbath, June 3rd. Memory text. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. Daniel 7, verse 3. Quote, Sacred history was one of the studies in the schools of the prophets. In the records of his dealings with the nations were traced the footsteps of Jehovah. So today we are to consider the dealings of God with the nations of the earth. We are to see in history the fulfillment of prophecy, to study the workings of providence in the great reformatory movements, and to understand the progress of events in the marshalling of the nations for the final conflict of the great controversy. Testimonies for the Church, Volume 8, page 307. Suggested reading, Prophets and Kings, pages 522 to 538. Sunday, May 28. Wind as a symbol. Question A. What does wind usually represent in prophecy? Jeremiah 25, verses 32 and 33. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Behold, evil shall go forth from nation to nation, and a great whirlwind shall be raised up from the coast of the earth. And the slain of the Lord shall be at that day from one end of the earth even unto the other end of the earth. They shall not be lamented, neither gathered nor buried. They shall be dung upon the ground. Jeremiah 25, verses 32 and 33. Jeremiah 4, verse 13. Behold, he shall come up as clouds, and his chariots shall be as a whirlwind. His horses are swifter than eagles. Woe unto us, for we are spoiled. Jeremiah 4, verse 13. Quote, winds are a symbol of strife. Great Controversy, page 439. Quote, in the book of Revelation, John sees the elements of nature, earthquake, tempest, and political strife, represented as being held by 4 angels. These winds are under control until God gives the word to let them go. There is the safety of God's church. The angels of God doing his bidding, holding back the winds of the earth, that the winds should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree, until the servants of God should be sealed in their foreheads. The mighty angel is seen ascending from the east, or sun rising. This mightiest of angel has in his hand the seal of the living God, or of him who alone can give life, who can inscribe upon the foreheads the mark or inscription, to whom shall be granted immortality, eternal life. It is the voice of this highest angel that had authority to command the 4 angels to keep in check the 4 winds until this work was performed, and until he should give the summons to let them loose. Testimonies to Ministers, pages 444 and 445. Monday, May 29. Water, beasts, and wings. Question A. We often find different prophetic illustrations around some sort of water or sea, especially in connection with the wind. What does that represent? Revelation 17, verse 15. And he said unto me, The waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples, and multitudes, and nations, and tongues. Revelation 17, verse 15. Quote, winds are symbolic of strife. The 4 winds of heaven stirring upon the great sea represent the terrible scenes of conquest and revolution by which kingdoms have attained to power. Great Controversy, page 440. Question B. What does God use to illustrate earthly kingdoms or empires? Daniel 7, verses 17 and 23. These great beasts, which are 4 kings, which shall arise out of the earth. Thus he said, The 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, and break it in pieces. Daniel 7, verses 17 and 23. Quote, to Daniel was given a vision of fierce beasts representing the powers of the earth, but the ensign of the Messiah's kingdom is a lamb. While earthly kingdoms rule by the ascendancy of physical power, Christ is to banish every carnal weapon, every instrument of coercion. His kingdom was to be established to uplift and ennoble fallen humanity. BC, Volume 4, page 1171. Question C. Oftentimes, a prophet saw a beast flying with wings totally contrary to the natural existence of the animal. How do these wings symbolize speed and tenacity as illustrated by the eagle? Habakkuk 1, verses 6 through 10. For lo, I raise up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation which shall march through the breadth of the land to possess the dwelling places that are not theirs. They are terrible and dreadful. Their judgment and their dignity shall proceed of themselves. Their horses also are swifter than the leopards, and are more fierce than the evening wolves. And their horsemen shall spread themselves, and their horsemen shall come from far. And they shall fly as the eagle that hasteth to eat. And they shall come all for violence. Their faces shall sup up as the east wind, and they shall gather the captivity as the sand. And they shall scoff at the kings, and the princes shall be a scorn unto them. They shall deride every strong hold, for they shall heap dust and take it. Habakkuk 1, verses 6 through 10. Quote, in her endeavors to reach her home, the eagle is often beaten down by the tempest to the narrow defiles of the mountains. The clouds in black angry masses sweep between her and the sunny heights where she secures her nests. For a while she seems bewildered and dashes this way and that, beating her strong wings as if to sweep back the dense clouds. At last she dashes upward into the blackness and gives a shrill scream of triumph as she emerges a moment later in the calm sunshine above. The darkness and tempest are all below her, and the light of heaven is shining about her. She reaches her loved home in the lofty crag, and is satisfied. It was through darkness that she reached the light. Messages to Young People, pages 102 and 103. Quote, there is great need of men who can use the press to the best advantage, that the truth may be given wings to speed it to every nation and tongue and people. Gospel Workers, page 25. Tuesday, May 30. The lion. Question A. Since beasts represent kingdoms, what nation is symbolized by the lion of Daniel 7, verse 4, and how did that nation fulfill its role in history? Jeremiah 4, verses 6 and 7. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Jeremiah 4, verses 6 and 7. Jeremiah 50, verses 17, 43, and 44. Israel is a scattered sheep. The lions have driven him away. First the king of Assyria hath devoured him, and last this Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, hath broken his bones. The king of Babylon hath heard the report of them, and his hands waxed feeble. Anguish took hold of him, and pangs as of a woman in travail. Behold, he shall come up like a lion from the swelling of Jordan unto the habitation of the strong, but I will make him suddenly run away from her. And who is a chosen man, that I may appoint over her? For who is like me, and who will appoint me the time, and who is that shepherd that will stand before me? Jeremiah 50, verses 17, 43, and 44. Quote, God revealed his determination to bring chastisement upon the nation that had turned from him to serve the gods of the heathen. Within the lifetime of some who were even then making inquiry regarding the future, he would miraculously shape the affairs of the ruling nations of earth and bring the Babylonians into the ascendancy. These Chaldeans, terrible and dreadful, were to fall suddenly upon the land of Judah as a divinely appointed scourge. The princes of Judah and the fairest of the people were to be carried captive to Babylon. The Judean cities and villages and the cultivated fields were to be laid waste. Nothing was to be spared. Prophets and Kings, pages 385 and 386. Question B. How does the Lord describe the mighty empire of Babylon at its peak under Nebuchadnezzar, and why? Jeremiah 24, verses 4 through 8. And command them to say unto their masters, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Thus shall ye say unto your masters, I have made the earth, the man and the beast, that are upon the ground, by my great power and by my outstretched arm, and have given it unto whom it seemed meet unto me. And now have I given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and the beasts of the field have I given him also to serve him. And all nations shall serve him, and his son, and his son's son, until the very time of his land come. And then many nations and great kings shall serve themselves of him. And it shall come to pass that the nation and kingdom which shall not serve the same Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and that will not put their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon, that nation will I punish, saith the Lord, with the sword, and with the famine, and with the pestilence, until I have consumed them by his hand. Jeremiah 27, verses 4 through 8. Quote, exalted to the pinnacle of worldly honor and acknowledged even by inspiration as a king of kings, Ezekiel 26, verse 7, Nebuchadnezzar, nevertheless, at times, had ascribed to the favor of Jehovah the glory of his kingdom and the splendor of his reign. An idolater by birth and training, and at the head of an idolatrous people, he had nevertheless an innate sense of justice and right, and God was able to use him as an instrument for the punishment of the rebellious and for the fulfillment of the divine purpose. The terrible of the nations, Ezekiel 27, verse 7, it was given Nebuchadnezzar after years of patient and wearing labor to conquer Tyre. Egypt also fell a prey to his victorious armies, and as he added nation after nation to the Babylonian realm, he added more and more to his fame as the greatest ruler of the age. It is not surprising that the successful monarch, so ambitious and so proud-spirited, should be tempted to turn aside from the path of humility, which alone leads to true greatness. In the intervals between his wars of conquest, he gave much thought to the strengthening and beautifying of his capital, until at length the city of Babylon became the chief glory of his kingdom, the golden city, the praise of the whole earth. Prophets and Kings, pages 514 and 515. Wednesday, May 31st. The bear. Question A. As the bear followed the lion, what nation came on the scene after the first? Explain its role in the history of nations. Isaiah 14, verses 3 and 4. And it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, How hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. Isaiah 14, verses 3 and 4. Daniel 7, verse 5, 30, and 31. And behold, another beast, a second like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. In that night was Belshazzar the king of Chaldeans slain, and Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. Daniel 7, verses 5, 30, and 31. Quote, Babylon, shattered and broken at last, passed away because in prosperity its rulers had regarded themselves as independent of God, and had ascribed the glory of their kingdom to human achievement. Prophets and Kings, pages 501 and 502. Quote, in the unexpected entry of the army of the Persian conqueror into the heart of the Babylonian capital by way of the channel of the river whose waters had been turned aside, and through the inner gates that in careless security had been left open and unprotected, the Jews had abundant evidence of the literal fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecy concerning the sudden overthrow of their oppressors. And this should have been to them an unmistakable sign that God was shaping the affairs of nations in their behalf. Prophets and Kings, page 552. Question B. Where was Medo-Persia's overthrow of Babylon prophesied, and to what extent did it fulfill the vastness of its world empire status? Jeremiah 25, verse 12. And it shall come to pass, when 70 years are accomplished, that I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, saith the Lord, for their iniquity in the land of the Chaldeans, and will make it perpetual desolations. Jeremiah 25, verse 12. Isaiah 44, verses 26 through 28. That confirmeth the word of his servant, and performeth the counsel of his messengers, that saith to Jerusalem, Thou shalt be inhabited, and to the cities of Judah, Ye shall be built, and I will raise up the decayed places thereof. That saith to the deep, Be dry, and I will dry up thy rivers. That saith to Cyrus, He is my shepherd, and shall perform all my pleasure, even saying to Jerusalem, Thou shalt be built, and to the temple, Thy foundations shall be laid. Isaiah 44, verses 26 through 28. Isaiah 45, verses 1 through 6. Thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him, and I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him the two-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut. I will go before thee, and make the crooked places straight. I will break in pieces the gates of brass, and cut asunder the bars of iron. And I will give thee the treasures of darkness, and hidden riches in secret places, that thou mayest know that I, the Lord, which call thee by thy name, am the God of Israel. For Jacob my servant's sake, and Israel mine elect, I have even called thee by thy name. I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me. I am the Lord, and there is none else. There is no God beside me. I girded thee, though thou hast not known me, that they may know from the rising of the sun and from the west that there is none beside me. I am the Lord, and there is none else. Isaiah 45, verses 1 through 6. Isaiah 43, verse 13. I have raised him up in righteousness, and I will direct all his ways. He shall build my city, and he shall let go my captives, not for price or reward, saith the Lord of hosts. Isaiah 45, verse 13. Esther 1, verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 127 provinces. Esther 1, verse 1. Quote, Upon Darius's death, within about 2 years of the fall of Babylon, Cyrus succeeded to the throne, and the beginning of his reign marked the completion of the 70 years since the first company of Hebrews had been taken by Nebuchadnezzar from their Judean home to Babylon. The deliverance of Daniel from the den of lions had been used of God to create a favorable impression upon the mind of Cyrus the Great. The sterling qualities of the man of God as a statesman of far-seeing ability led the Persian ruler to show him marked respect and to honor his judgment. And now, just at the time God had said he would cause his temple at Jerusalem to be rebuilt, he moved upon Cyrus as his agent to discern the prophecies concerning himself, with which Daniel was so familiar, and to grant the Jewish people their liberty. Quote, As the king saw the words foretelling more than 100 years before his birth the manner in which Babylon should be taken, as he read the message addressed to him by the ruler of the universe, his heart was profoundly moved, and he determined to fulfill his divinely appointed mission. Prophets and Kings, pages 556 and 557. Thursday, June 15. The leopard. Question A. Since the leopard followed the bear, what nation followed Medo-Persia as the next great empire? Daniel 7, verse 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Daniel 7, verse 6. Daniel 8, verses 5, 7, 20, and 21. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west, on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him. But he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. The ram which thou sawest, having 2 horns, are the kings of Media and Persia. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Daniel 8, verses 5 through 7, 20, and 21. Quote, the Medo-Persian realm was visited by the wrath of heaven because in it God's law had been trampled underfoot. The fear of the Lord had found no place in the hearts of the vast majority of the people. Wickedness, blasphemy, and corruption prevailed. Prophets and Kings, page 502. Question B. What do horns represent, and how are they similar to the 4 heads in this animal? Daniel 8, verses 8 and 22. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. Daniel 8, verses 8 and 22. How did their proud philosophy influence the world, and how does the gospel stand in contrast to such philosophy? 1 Corinthians 1, verses 19 through 25. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and will bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this world? Hath not God made foolish the wisdom of this world? For after that, in the wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God. It pleased God by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. For the Jews require a sign, and the Greeks seek after wisdom. But we preach Christ crucified, unto the Jews a stumbling block, and unto the Greeks foolishness. But unto them which are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ the power of God, and the wisdom of God, because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than man. 1 Corinthians 1, verses 19 through 25. Colossians 2, verse 8. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. Colossians 2, verse 8. Quote, is it safe to trust our youth to the guidance of those blind leaders who study the sacred oracles with far less interest than they manifest in the classical authors of ancient Greek and Rome? Review and Herald, October 30, 1900. Quote, the Greeks believed that there was need of elevating the human race, but they regarded the study of philosophy and science as the only means of attaining to true elevation and honor. Acts of the Apostles, page 244. Quote, Paul declared that neither Jewish learning nor Grecian eloquence could reach the mark of the high calling that is in Christ Jesus. The highest eloquence, the greatest physical strength, cannot give man power to convict and convert souls. It is a heart reception of the pure principles of the gospel that makes man an honor to God. Essential Advance, April 8, 1903. Friday, June 2nd. Personal review questions. Question 1. How can we discern God's purposes in the workings of nations today? Question 2. How are the characteristics of earthly nations depicted in prophecy? Question 3. What caused the nation of Babylon to change the way it operated? Question 4. How does prophecy reveal God's concern over the affairs of nations? Question 5. In what ways does the Greek system still influence society today?